Hi, evolutionaries. Welcome back to Evolution Greenworks. We have a fantastic show for you today. Our special guest is Jack Winram, and he is joining us as the Executive Director for MEIA, Manitoba. A director for MANSEA. So I automatically said Manitoba Sustainable Energy, but he is the Manitoba Environmental Industry Association. So I'm going to bring Jack in. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Lorena. Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, our name is a mouthful, so you just refer to it as MEIA. That works for me. And
that's the way I've always referred to it as. I've been involved with MEIA for years, and they have done some amazing work. Do you want to tell me? I know there is some amazing new changes to MEIA, including you. So tell me about that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity to just speak about MEIA a little bit and some of those changes. I had the opportunity to peruse your website over the weekend and take in some of your other shows and previous broadcasts. So
yeah, fantastic.
Really cool. And yeah, thanks again. So MEIA, as you mentioned, Manitoba Environmental Industries Association, it was formed in 1991, and that makes this year our 30th anniversary. So what's interesting about that is we've been doing some research on MEIA and the legacy and the foundation that it's had in the province for all these years. And what's come to light is that when it started was that it was just basically a bunch of people getting around for coffee and discussing industry issues and like-minded issues from what was I would describe as the traditional definition of environment. Back in the early 90s, if you would have said you worked in the environmental sector, you would have been working in waste management, waste remediation, and some other environmental sciences like biology and that sort of thing. So just like in time, the word environment has come to mean other things in our language. It is also evolved in the association to involve cleantech, renewables, discussions on greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. And in addition to all that, that positioned MEIA quite well to become a sector council under the Manitoba Sector Council program. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Manitoba Sector Council program, it's a workforce development program through the province with both federal and provincial funding under the Department of Economic Development and Training. Catch that. They changed their name recently to Economic Development and Jobs. And so under that mandate, we're tasked with helping Manitoba retain jobs, be more competitive, and create jobs through workforce development and training, finding those gaps and those needs in industry that aren't necessarily, we're not competing against the other colleges and universities and post-secondary education training where we have the flexibility to work with industry directly and fill the gaps where they're needed. So under that Sector Council program, we fall under natural resources, energy, and environment. So natural resources, that's your mining, your forestry, even things like trapping and commercial fishing, as well as, of course, energy involves hydroelectric generation, which is, the big thing here in Manitoba, but also renewables like solar and wind and biomass and geothermal. In fact, we just launched, it should be in the Winnipeg Free Press today or tomorrow, a course on geothermal, or as the more technical people call it, geo-exchange design. And so this is an area an example where MEIA can build capacity within our province using expertise that we have access to in this province to train and build capacity for design and new technologies. So yeah, it's a big part of what we do. And then of course there's that environmental side that still retains that traditional legacy that MEIA has always represented for waste management remediation, and they all overlap, right? In mining and
Right.
forestry, you've got environmental and energy issues. Same with energy, they overlap with the other two areas. So it's a really good fit for where we are, and it's a testament to the legacy of all those before me who built MEIA into a really strong organization. So. Yeah, I just joined a year ago, so what better time to join and have a new job in the middle of a pandemic? But we've been able to make that work.
Absolutely. And what you said about the changes, like, I know what you mean. Like it's like the terms mean so much more these days and encompasses so many more industries, really.
Yes. Yeah.
Almost everything, even stuff that really wasn't considered environmental before, has switched gears and has made itself more integrated into reducing the amount of energy it requires or being longer lasting, easier to fix. I noticed this with geo products, even like when you're buying geothermal systems, they're becoming more universal for the parts, those types of things.
Yeah.
Whereas it all used to have to go right back to the factory that it was made.
Well, a great indication of that is the support that we've had from and the demand that we have. We see that every day. There's other sector councils, and of course I mentioned what we represent: natural resources, energy, environment. But there's other sector councils like the manufacturing sector, the aerospace sector, the bioscience sector, Manitoba Construction Sector Council. All of these other sector councils have been great to collaborate with. They all have a need and a demand right now for sustainable processes and protocols, environmentally friendly, doing business in a more greener way. The demand is immense, and MEIA is really well positioned to help collaborate with other associations on that. Especially MANCEA, the Manitoba Sustainable Energy Association, has been a great collaboration in the last year. We've always had a relationship, but I think we really embraced each other in this pandemic because they had their conference canceled early on, and we were always a strong supporter of that conference. And so what we did was collectively get together, and this is just such a great example that I'm proud of. We got together and said, okay, in light of not being able to have an in-person conference, what's our next best thing? And so we were able to develop some webinars, and over the course of the year, we had 3 webinars: one on biomass, one on Indigenous clean energy, which is a growing sector, and then also one on geothermal. So it's been great.
Yeah, those really did work out quite well, and I look forward to doing more. So MANCEA actually has one coming up. So it's going to be across 3 nights. So it's nice and easy, only about an hour and a half a night, starting at 7 p.m. And you are going to be speaking on one of those nights.
Yeah, I'll be speaking on the 3rd night, which is April 6th. MEIA is a sponsor for the entire conference, so I'll have an opportunity to speak on each night. But on the 3rd evening, I'm going to speak about some of the results from a renewable survey that we've been conducting in the Manitoba market right now. So
great.
We've reached out to cleantech companies, waste energy companies, and renewable companies, looking to get some baseline feedback on what their needs are, what are the gaps, what are they looking for, and this helps MEIA design the training and the workforce development that meets the needs of industry. So really looking forward to talking about some of the results from that survey.
Well, one of the things that I love about doing these surveys is we get to have a voice. And when we talk about demand, where did demand come from? Well, it's part and parcel to these surveys. Answering these surveys, guys, really, everybody needs to use their voice, because this is how it directs the future of organizations, of manufacturers, of technology in general. Yeah. And when we talk about demand, like even for geothermal and other industries, the reason it got better is because there was demand. People spoke up and said something. this isn't right. This needs to be like this. The same with packaging. You go to the store and all this heavy packaging. All you have to do is raise your voice. Everybody has one. So I think that's important to note. And that's exactly what organizations like MEIA does. They address the things that are not in the industry now, things like training and technical advice and things of this nature. So, like I've been involved in safety training, particularly. I mean, you guys, you have quite a wide band of what you do. Want to talk a little bit about the safety training and things that you have for companies?
Yeah, sure. And I just want to build on your comment though first, because it's
Sure.
such a great comment. Because the pitch I like to make to industry is that we are funded by provincial and federal government. So essentially, that's your taxpayer dollars. And if you participate in the survey, it's much like voting. You have a say. But if you participate in the survey, it's an opportunity for us to make sure we design and get the best bang for our buck in terms of what we deliver. So, but yeah, it's one of the unique things actually from this pandemic is that we actually enhanced some of our safety training, and we have a number of programs and deliverables that currently are out there. Sometimes it's as basic as first aids, H2S Alive training we provided through our program. We've got a hazardous waste handling training course that has been part of me for a long time, but we've actually expanded that to have more sessions on it just because of the demand here in Manitoba. Also, we've tweaked that course or built on that course with the same instructor and expertise that we have in Manitoba to design a safety waste handling course. Particularly for remote and First Nation Indigenous communities. I was just recently part of Manitoba Association of Recyclers, and they had a session on hazardous waste handling in some of these small communities, and the person putting on the course was Randy Weber, who also works with MEIA, and Randy had some pictures that were incredible that just make your jaw drop, take your breath away at some of the materials that were found in some communities that have been sitting there. Things like mercury and acid batteries that have been sitting there for years, waste oil, used tires. There's a lot out there. And again, that's an area that MEIA has the flexibility to work with and identify those areas where the safety is required. But it also was kind of an interesting development from the pandemic in that one of the things we did early on in the fall was actually just not a formal survey, but just anecdotally, I picked up the phone and talked to a few members. What do you need? What are you looking for? Rather than we need that speed to market in terms of what the needs are out there, especially in the pandemic. And some of the basic things that companies were looking for is simple things like first aid and H2S. And so we ramped up those programs in the fall as well to help industry catch up, because a lot of companies deferred or pulled back on their in-person training where they would send them out to training. And as a result, I think, there's a lot of opportunity to get safety training in Manitoba, but we're probably, behind and just kind of catching up because everybody's changing their formats from in-person to virtual and finding ways. Like it used to be, you couldn't take first aid unless it was in person.
Yes.
And so overnight that was gone. And so since then, they've been able to develop online virtual training.
That's fantastic.
And it's become a big deal. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I hope this doesn't change later is the availability for remote communities to get training. Access to webinars has gone through the roof. Access to information has gone through the roof, really, for these independent communities that don't have, they can't just drive out. It's not reasonable for them. So I think that part, I hope it stays, because we have some fantastic people in these communities that really care and want to stay in their communities, but they want to do some good there. And I wanted to comment on what you're saying about, the trash. I know, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. You were in a big city, there's like depots for this and depots for that. But that just doesn't happen in small communities. It's not there. And if it is there, they don't even know exactly what it's doing, right? Or it just sits there. It gets gathered up at a point, but it sits there.
Right.
And things like batteries are like 90% recyclable. They are. Yeah. And there's value in it. So they do the recycling on that particular item, for instance. Tires, they were developing so many more industries where the tires can even be recycled. But we're also doing carbon capture equipment where we can burn those, recapture the carbon out of them, and resell that powder that's created.
Just vehicles in general, are an issue in the north. It's great to bring, cars to these remote communities or vehicles to these communities, but then when they time out in terms of their life cycle, then what happens with them? And
I hear you.
So it's the whole car. There's leftover fuel in the gas tanks. There's tires. There's batteries. There's coolant. And of course there's value in all of that to recycle. So demonstrating that, training people to take advantage of that, and supporting programs that help on that whole front is again part of what MEIA does. And this is, I really like what you said about the remote communities, because this is where MEIA can really shine, is because we have that flexibility that's a little bit different than the parameters of say a university or a college. Our programming doesn't have any prerequisites. You don't need grade 10 or grade 12. We can go into those communities, bring the course and the curriculum to the community itself, either virtual or in person. Whereas, the traditional post-secondary education institutions, you have to come to them. You have to come to their bricks and mortar. And that doesn't work for a lot of these remote communities and Indigenous communities. So that's again where MEIA can shine as a sector council. And so I can't emphasize enough how much that is supported by our provincial and federal government on this sector council program.
Well, I have to start off by saying I totally agree with you. Now, number one, I know a lot of people personally in remote communities, and I know some of them are the brightest shining stars I've ever met in my life. They may have grade 8 education, but it doesn't determine how much intellectually smart you are. And they have total capacity to take these types of courses and benefit from them. And they shouldn't be a prerequisite for that. If they are, intelligent enough to take the course, they should just take the course, and they'll get that information out there and be able to benefit their communities right away.
Well, and just not to sound too much like I'm on a soapbox here, but I actually do think that that is the biggest renaissance or revolution for Canada, to really tap in to our vast remote areas of our country that we really haven't had the opportunity to do. But now technology has made leaps and bounds. So it's important, one, that we make sure our infrastructure for technology, whether it be transportation or communication through the web, is used to tap into that resource, the resource of the minds, the youth, the natural, stewardship of the land that some of these communities rely on. So that, to me, I think could pose Canada a huge benefit to Canada in the future, and we should definitely take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And communication up north is increasing. It's getting better, but it needs to get a lot better. And also the transportation. This is huge. Creating industry is simply by allowing industry. When it takes $100 million to build 33 kilometers in the Muskeg of highway, why are we even bothering when that money could be used to create an industry like airships, where we could be providing a network for all of that transportation to happen. So if you have industry up there, they can get their goods and wares here. And if they need products to create their industry out there, it comes back out there. Those ships can carry up to 30 tons. It doesn't make sense to me that we can go to the moon. We can support going to the moon, but we can't put communication and clean housing and infrastructure and create industry in our valuable north. And a lot of people say, well, there's nothing up there. No, that's actually not true. Most of our resources are up there. And there's people with education and with the knowledge on how to do that. But they just lack this piece. It's too expensive to go around with the ships during the certain times of the months or a year that they can do that, and or winter roads with the trucking. It becomes increasingly expensive. Projects are held over for a great deal of time, so it takes the money out of the pocket.
And the window for winter roads seems to be, eroding more and more.
It's smaller and smaller. This year we lost probably 2 months, 3 months off of winter roads alone. And how do you get your stuff in? Like, it's incredible. And not to mention the daredevil truckers that have to do it. I mean, I know some. Actually, I know somebody who does those winter roads, and I just can't believe it. He actually used to do sales for Evolve Green, and he lives off grid, by the way. But anyways, great guy, but man, you gotta have nerves of steel to do that. No wonder they created a show out of that, because I'm telling you, they're the modern day, swashbucklers or whatever, right?
Well, therein lies both the opportunity and the challenge for an organization like MEIA, because we cross over these days. I think it was much more limited or maybe even siloed, 10, 15, 20 years ago of MEIA being an environmental industry association. But now transportation has uses the word environment and sustainability all the time. It's very important to that. And so every industry, doesn't matter if it's housing, construction, commercial buildings, all the other industries that I mentioned before, it's on everybody's mind right now, and everybody's talking about it. So again, that's both a challenge for me, but also an opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. We're going to take a short break now, but I wanted to actually talk about a bit more about training in northern communities and the challenges they face, and how MEIA is stepping up to fill those challenges. So right now we're going to have word from our sponsors. We've got Evolve Green and Piranha Makeup. That's made right here in Manitoba. And of course, Fabricland in Winkler, Manitoba. And I just wanted to say, I'll be right back.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you, with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
And we're back. This is episode 11 with Evolution Greenworks. Your host, Lorena Mitchell. That's me. And we are talking to special guest Jack Winram with MEIA. So that would be at meia.md.ca if you want to check them out for anything to do with environmental training, safety training. They are just incredible. Jack, welcome back. So before we left, we were going to talk a little bit more about our isolated communities, but let's talk about first how underrepresented this is. You know, anything 200 kilometers past Winnipeg is a remote community here. It's incredible, the need.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, I grew up in northern Saskatchewan and northern Manitoba, and so I think as I said before, the opportunities that aren't being tapped into in our remote communities is immense and a huge opportunity for Canada. You know, from MEIA's perspective, we've been able to do a couple of things. One, we partnered with the Manitoba Construction Sector Council on a need for water and wastewater installation training for the communities. There's a tremendous amount of infrastructure that's being invested into many remote communities right now, whether it be hospitals, schools, water and wastewater facilities. And so we identified that there was a need for both workforce development on the installation side and on the operator side. We actually started looking at the operator side, which in Canada and certainly in Manitoba, it's a heavily regulated area, and you have to be certified to operate a potable water system. And so, and of course, drinking water is a huge issue in community, and
it is.
It's near and dear to my own heart. My sister was actually in Walkerton when that happened, and she was very sick and was part of the class action suit. So the consequences are serious, and many of these remote communities have been dealing with this, you know, their entire existence. And so what we can, again, fill those gaps where we can build a curriculum that brings the curriculum and the essential skills capacity training to the community. We're not intending to do an end run around any kind of regulatory process. It's just build some capacity and some knowledge within the community to run the systems that they have. There's some great courses and curriculum offered by Red River and others on water and wastewater installation and operation. However, you know, those are long-term courses, you know, whether they be 16 or 20 weeks, and they require people to travel to Winnipeg and stay in Winnipeg and sit in the classroom. So they're taking material that might not necessarily be applicable to their own community. Right. And so where we can come in is design a curriculum that's designed for that specific community's system. So if they have chlorine drip system, they have certain pumps that are unique to their community, filters. Fundamentally, a lot of these communities use the same systems, but they're designed differently, and they're using different equipment because they've all been had some touch time with various engineers and engineering companies over the years. So each one is unique. So to build an over-encompassing curriculum that covers it all is difficult. And so, you know, there's no sense training somebody from the community on a piece of equipment that they don't have.
I totally agree. It becomes nonsensical. Yeah. Like I'm actually a certified wastewater operator.
Are you?
And I can do all those water tests. I used to work for the Royal Canadian Mint. I was a lead hand there. Okay. And so I had a wide breadth of training while I was there for 10 years. So so
you know all about that, Eric?
I do.
It's been an issue for many years in Manitoba to ensure we have qualified, certified operators in remote communities, and so I think there's a little space. We don't have the holy grail to solve all of the problems, but I think there's a space there for MEIA to help.
Well, there's two things that come to mind after what you just said. You know, you can give somebody a fish to feed them for today, or you can teach them how to fish. And I think this is the same scenario. We give them the information they need in order to get the job done, and then it perpetuates itself. They then now have a job, and it creates a whole background for them, and it helps with their infrastructure up north, makes everything safer for their community, for their potable water, and or some of them are starting to get lagoons and waste treatment. Want to see more of this. We want to see less diesel generated electrical areas. We've got 4 major ones in Manitoba with you know, the various problems that come with that. And I don't think anybody really totally understands how decimated the environment is and how sick it is for the children to be breathing in diesel fumes, because this becomes a part of every single home. I don't think in Manitoba we realize that 200 kilometers past Pico Lake, we already have a serious environmental situation. And it's very saddening because they don't have infrastructure for both water, sewer in some cases, and we're talking about whole communities here. These are Canadians. These are Manitobans. They should have these things in these communities. But I mean, one of the things is they bring in other companies to do cleanup and then they're gone. I think the answer is always going to be training people in the communities, giving them the tools they need in order to make these communities safe. And I think
that's the positive here, right? Taking advantage of all of the infrastructure investment that is being made in these communities to improve their landfill sites. I have a vivid memory of my childhood of going to the local dump and watching the bears in an uncontrolled landfill. It was just a pit in the ground, and so we take that for granted in our accessible communities here in Manitoba, that all of the infrastructure and regulations and protocols are in place. But in many cases, sadly, that's still the case up north, is that they're unmanaged and there needs to be some infrastructure. But why not take, again, the positive of all of the investments that are being made in the construction and use that as a ladder into a lifelong career in operations? Because that's one thing that, I want industry to recognize, is that it's great to work with local community members on construction and the building of capital projects, whether it be a transmission line or a pipeline or a dam or whatever it might be, or even a renewable microgrid like in Lac Brochet. And so it's that once the construction is done, though, it's over. Then what? So I think it's important to make sure that there's an opportunity for a lifelong career in the whole life cycle of these infrastructure systems. And that's where this water and wastewater course that we're looking at here is a really good development from a short-term 3 to 6 month job working in the installation, gaining all the experience and understanding of that system during the installation process, and then having the potential to pick a lifelong career that could last 20, 30 years in the operating of that system. So I think that's important for industry to recognize. It's not just the construction and the installation, but we can involve communities in the whole life cycle of all of these capital projects.
Absolutely. And I know that, and I designed Lac Brochet, the 200 kilowatt, actually. I went out for tender after that, and I believe it was Solar Solutions that installed. But I was on the design team for that one. So it was really exciting. The reason for the 200 kilowatt was a few things. The community lacked infrastructure to make it safe, and it was not safe for their community because of the diesel, the smell, everything that was there, because it was a diesel operated utility site. It seeps into the ground over time with the infrastructure degrading. So it's so important. But that project involved all the community, both for construction and ongoing upkeep, so long-term jobs available in the community and training. So that community has benefited a lot. I would love to actually go back and see what it looks like 5 years later, to see how much has changed, because I know meeting with the elders, it was heart-wrenching, some of the stories they used to tell us in the meetings. I've met with the chief at the time, and the up-and-coming, because they would involve the junior members, which was totally exciting.
Right.
That were extremely passionate about their community and creating hope. And I think that's the other thing too, right? Once we create industry where they are and jobs where they are, they'll be able to stay, because truly, I mean, maybe the communities need help because of the diesel generated the diesel seeping into the ground and all these other issues. But if you just take a breath and you look around, these are the most amazing breathtaking Canadian sights you will ever see.
Absolutely.
People talk about traveling coast to coast and all over the world, and I'm like, have you seen our province and how diverse it is? It's gorgeous. It really is.
Yeah.
So, and
you know, there's such, like, I think a lot of Manitobans don't realize we have some really good examples here in Manitoba. You know, the Lac Roche microgrid, where they've introduced geothermal, solar, and
biomass
into their system and integrated the three together. I think that's a great example for other communities and Indigenous communities. And I know that other Indigenous communities, First Nation communities, are looking at that as an example to aspire to. So that's great. Same with Fox Lake. There's a solar system that they've integrated into their system. And again, just building on what I said earlier about the opportunity for Canada to have a renaissance in this area. It is our remote and vast areas where we can really shine and apply these new technologies, these new designs, these alternative designs. It's the low-hanging fruit for us to take advantage of.
Absolutely. I totally agree. You know, it has been totally amazing talking to you today, Jack. I just love it.
Already? Is it that fast?
It really is. You know, I wanted to say thank you so much, but I really want to have you guys back. I want to have you guys back as we work through this pandemic. And I know you guys are coming up with these stellar ideas. You have a conference coming up with MEIA where you're going to be speaking on April 6th. That conference actually starts, it's a 3-part on Tuesdays from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., hour and a half each night. Each night focuses on something different and unique. And the last one, of course, is the AGM. It's really cheap. It's like $15 for all 3 or something like that, or $25 if you want to become a member. Become a member of MEIA and of MANCEA, because these two organizations are really working hard to get information to you, and MEIA is working hard to get that access to training.
MANCEA has been kind enough to offer MEIA members free access to that conference. So
nice.
So that's great as well. And I really look forward to this was nice. I think there's a lot more that I could talk about in terms of MEIA's programming. Check out our website to see more, but I think we could have conversations like this more often. Thanks a lot, Lorena.
Thank you so much for coming. And I just wanted to close out the show by saying thank you so much to MEIA for joining us, Jack Winram. And I'm going to say see you later till episode 12. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.